listen up, y'all. It's the queen of automation, Megan Donnelly, here to give you inspiration. Founders and business owners gather round. I'ma show you how to build systems that'll astound. Streamline your processes, no need for complicated.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Queen of Automation podcast, where we talk about all things technology, why it's only good when it works, and how I help you make it work. And today, yet again, we have another fabulous Brand Built member. I don't know why all of you listeners haven't joined the Brand Built community yet, but you absolutely have to. PJ Valentini. We were just joking offline that I was going to butcher his name, so I did not. It is not Valentine's, even though it's Valentine's Day. Cheesy mom joke. There you go. I did it. PJ Valentini is such a cool guy. I absolutely love talking to salespeople and people in the finance space because if you want to know anything about systems and processes, they are the people to go to because they use them on a daily basis. Math does not lie. When you're a sales guy, you're focused on numbers and you're focused on sales. When you're a finance guy, you're focused on sales and you're focused on numbers. And to do the right thing every day, you're using a process. I'm going to let him jump in and tell you all about that in a little bit. But PJ is a very cool guy because he is doing it. It's not necessarily consulting. Again, we were just talking about this, but he connects people in the healthcare industry and then he's helping them learn how to be better at making connections and learn how to be better salespeople in his space. And I'm going to let him introduce himself and tell you where he's calling in from because he's a really amazing content creator as well, which is why we're here because we have this obsession with LinkedIn. We're all a little bit crazy and obsessed. So PJ, say hello, tell everybody where you're calling from, and give us a little bit of a backstory about who you are and what you're doing these days.
Thank you, Megan. So I'm PJ Valentini. First off, thanks for having me today. I do appreciate that. It's great to be here. I'm calling from Nashville. So I'm from Nashville, living in Nashville, Tennessee, originally from New York City. That's where I'm at right now. It's actually chilly. It's actually chilly today.
Okay.
So
it's chilly everywhere today. So
yeah, it's like we're dealing with a little bit of winter here, which is not my favorite season, but at least it's not raining. So we've been getting lots of rain, but much nicer today. So I've been in the Nashville area for about 6 years now, working in the company that I used to work for, connecting people through a fantastic event with a really fantastic team I used to work for. And now I'm basically working in the space of doing it, but now via more through a SaaS solution, a SaaS product. So I work for a company called the IDN Directory. We basically focus on connecting people that are basically healthcare sellers. Basically, you know, if you have a product that you're trying to get into the hospital and you need to connect with the proper buyers, my job is to facilitate that through my software solution, but also give you some advice along the way as to how to best interact with these leaders. And my product has a number of great things that it does. It gives you contact details. It gives you up-to-date news articles so that you can kind of learn and stay in the know about our service, about what's going on in these IDNs, what we call these integrated delivery networks, which are kind of the top of the food chain in the healthcare space, which is who I connect people with. I used to connect people with at the hospital level. Now I've kind of moved up to connecting people at the IDN level. So that's kind of the uniqueness of my position now. But I was not a salesperson initially. That's not what my background was. I was a martial arts instructor for 15 years in New York City. So that's where I got.
This is why his story is cool, people. Listen, this is why it's cool because anyone can pivot at any age. Yeah.
Yes. So I got into martial arts after I guess you could say kind of bombed out of the film industry because that's what I was classically trained in school was as a cinematographer and a photographer. Worked in that industry for many years. It eventually became more of a side hustle that I was just kind of doing to make a little extra money on the side. It was very hard for me to get in. And eventually I kind of just walked away from it and then fell in love with karate and just decided, I'm going to go all in on this. And I became the school manager over at World Sato Karate, still stands today, 50 years almost, this organization. Fantastic organization, will always be a member of it as a student, and managed the school for many years, and then eventually decided I wanted to teach, and they helped me set that up. I made it to 3rd degree black belt with the idea that one day I was going to open up my own dojo. I was going to take the dojo from New York, or the idea to open one, and I was going to do it in Boston because that's where I went to college. And as I started to learn more about the industry, I realized I don't know if I can necessarily do well in this industry on the business side. I think as an instructor working for somebody, I could really do well and help their dojo grow. But I realized I wasn't really a businessman. And so I decided to kind of go back to school. I got into my first, I guess you could say, real step of entrepreneurship, which was an abject failure in photography. I started a photography business. It was like flying by the seat of my pants every single day. And this is a funny story. My advertising chops were, PJ's going to go out with postcards that he had printed, and he's going to go and he's going to put some tape on a light pole,
on like a light pole, and just slap it up there. Like, we're talking old school.
It's a block.
This is why I love this story, because you were in Brandville one time talking about like boots on the street. And, like, I was knocking on doors. That right there, I feel like every entrepreneur should do that, even if it's just 1 week or do this for a couple of days to see how awful it is. I'd be out there in the rain. You have it with LinkedIn.
Oh yeah, no, and it was rain or shine. It was like, okay, I got to hit this block today, and it was like it's raining out. I'm walking, and as I'm turning around, I'm seeing my postcards basically just fall off the lamppost, and just hit a puddle of water, and I'm like, it's going to be a very, very backwards kind of day. But eventually, I reinvented myself again. I was still teaching karate, but I wasn't competing anymore. And then I went back to school to become a computer programmer, to become basically a programmer. So I learned how to code. I was really finding my way as a front-end developer. And then my mother got ill, and then I moved to Tennessee to be closer to her. And I got a job. Yep. It was just kind of a tough time, but glad that I could be there, for the last couple of years of her life. Started working for this company, and the events company, and I got hired as a programmer, and I went from being a front end really developer designer to them being like, okay, we need you to crunch some numbers on the back end, but it's going to be in this different language that you know very little about, and we're going to teach you and help you assimilate it. It was just, again, I just like I got dropped on my head, basically. It was, but through that, my sales team would come to me and be like, dude, all right, so we can see you're struggling a little bit with the program, but when you're on site at our events, all the people love you, man. Like, have you ever thought about getting into sales? And I was just like, man, no, I don't. I'm a programmer, man. That's what I'm doing. And so finally, I consulted with my mother, who was still alive at the time and was a salesperson in her past, and said, look, it's in your blood, kid. You got two choices. You can go for it and hate it and say at least you tried it, or you can go for it and it sticks and it changes your life forever. So I said, you know what? Yep. So let me go through the door. And 5 years later, PJ's still selling. So
I have to tell you, I think this is amazing, and I'll tell you why. This is one of the reasons you're here. When my team was like, we should have PJ on the podcast. He's not like a direct operations type of, and I said, oh my God, we have to have PJ on the podcast, and I'll tell you why.
Thank you.
Our backgrounds are so similar but different, and it's kind of ridiculous. So I was a dancer. Okay. And I danced my entire life, starting from the age of 2 all the way up. I got pregnant at 19 with my daughter and pivoted. Guess what I did? I was a front-end developer and user experience designer.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? Like totally crazy. And so like when I was hearing your story in Brandville and you were kind of going through it, I was obviously a shortened version of what you just said. I was like, man, I got to connect with PJ. So same thing. I knew that I did not want to be a teacher, because those local studios, martial arts studios, dance studios, those local studios, those owners make no money. And then not only do they not make any money, it's really hard. And I don't know if martial arts parents are the same way as dance parents. I was lucky. My parents were amazing. They weren't I'm just going to say it. They weren't the asshole parents, like the helicopters that were over there. I was there because I wanted to be, not because my mom was like doing this, Parents suck in
they
both
can be
of
tough.
those industries. They're awful.
They can be tough. I was very lucky that for me, the parents that I worked with the many children that I taught over the years, were always very supportive. Sometimes they were a little like, look, my kid needs to learn discipline. And I'm like, well, 3 times a week, 45 minutes at a time, that's only going to be very limited amount of discipline. So we're going to have to work together, you and me, on a united front, as the parent and me as their teacher. to communicate so that we can keep administering the discipline here at the dojo. And you can do your part by administering parental discipline at home. And then we can find a way
like
to
I'm
work.
not their parent. Like I
Yeah.
can't help you there. Or the parents that as soon as they find out that their child has a talent, and now that talent is going to take over their lives, their family, and now that child is all in because the parent has discovered that they're really talented at this, and then the kid ends up hating it because the parents push them too hard. So there's that opposite side. Anyway, we don't have to go down that path. We could probably have an entire episode.
But it's
just
a reality,
about that.
though. It's very much a reality.
Right, it is. It's really kind of shitty and awful. But the parents that are great. And like, anyway, that's a whole nother show. We'll make a podcast. You and I. It'll be about that. Because,
love it,
man. So yeah. So then I did the front end development thing and did that for a while. And I was actually a brand designer. And this is where the unicorn things come in play, like left brain, right brain. And my mentor, who I met in my 20s, he was like, you are an amazing user experience designer, right? Because that's what originally I was doing, the design. And he said, but I can't work with you unless you can code. So he took me under his wing and we did the whole thing, right? Like he taught me how to code. He taught me JavaScript. He taught me all the stuff. And then boom, I'm like, all right. So then we started building. That was my first experience with a side hustle, because when we started building and growing a business, and then I decided I did not want to own my own web design business. I was like, this is not where I don't want to do this. Like, this isn't what I want to do. I moved into corporate America, which was, first digital person hired for $1 billion corporation. It was totally surreal. And they took me and took the left brain and the right brain, smushed it together, made me a digital experience operations person. And that was it. I'm like, this is my thing. End to end customer experience, user experience, like trying to figure out and how to create the systems and processes behind the scenes that make it all work. And to do it without it being super painful for the owners of the companies, like your SaaS product, right? Or the end user. And so this is crazy. I totally forgot you had a SaaS product until you said it. I knew all of the other stuff. And then when you said SaaS, I was like, that's the other reason I want him here, because hello, SaaS product. I own one. You own one. So similar. It's kind of crazy. But before we jump into that, because I want to hear all about this SaaS product and how you kind of handle your daily operations, because I'm a nerd that way. And that's what we talk about.
Absolutely.
How do you deal with, on a regular basis, being in the sales world now, even though you have the product, like work-life balance, to me doesn't really exist, right? Like, especially if you're a solopreneur, even if you're working for a company, or it's all one life. We're one person, like we can't clone ourselves, that type of thing. I'm always curious to hear sales people's perspective on this topic, because sales is like a 24 hours a job. Right? Like, I feel like sometimes it really can be, and it can overtake your life. And it's one of those things where you get it ingrained in your head. A good salesperson is always selling without selling. You know what I mean? Like, you're always talking about the thing. You're always talking about the product, the service, the thing. You're always talking about it, to the point where I have family and friends that are like, I don't care about your business. Stop talking about it. They're over it, right? Like, they don't want to hear it anymore because it sounds like a broken record to people.
So yeah, for me, I would say like, I'd say the first and foremost, what salespeople have to have more than anything, and I think not just as salespeople, I've said as humans, is you have to be disciplined. You have to have discipline. And what that starts off with, and obviously being a martial arts guy and you being a former dancer, which I fully believe dancing is a form of a martial art, because it takes that type of rigid discipline and determination to continue to get better and keep performing. And then you have to get on stage to make that, karate people don't get on stage except when they compete, but it's different. So I think being disciplined, I've always worked for people. So I should be very clear to say that I'm not necessarily an entrepreneur. I'm more of an intrapreneur. I help companies grow from the inside and get better and more profitable. And so I was able to do that at my old role. And now I'm trying to do this with kind of this startup opportunity with the IDN Directory. But I've learned also, for the sake of my marriage, which is important to note, you have to be able to pump the brakes at some point. So for me, it's really about like keeping my fitness up. So I love to ride my bike. I'm a big cyclist. I'm on the bike a lot. It helps me It's refuge for my brain. So that's something that's very important to me. In the winter, it's a little bit harder to get out there because it's cold, but I do my best. I think also like, there's a lot of frustration that can come from being in sales. You have good days and bad days. And I think that I used to grind really hard, and I still do. I'm still very much that grinder mentality where it's like, okay, I'm going to make these phone calls. I want to do these emails. And, I'm just going to keep pushing and pushing. I'm going to get on before everybody else does. I'm going to stay on a little bit later than everybody else does. And it's not to compete with people, but it's just that, hey, I have these tasks and I need to get through them. And I want to make sure I get through each one each day. And right now, I would be honest to say I don't have a whole lot of automated systems in place. I'll use my Loom to make videos and do some video outreach. I'm with Brand Built, getting great information, connecting with folks like yourself, and also learning how to basically leverage LinkedIn and do something that I never thought I would have to do, but realizing it's the way of the world. And that's creating a personal brand, which is like, I have to do that now? I thought I could just sell my product.
Yeah.
Mind blowing. It's like, I thought I could just sell a product, stay in my corner, because my mission is a faceless mission. My goal is to help supply chains operate more efficiently by connecting the best vendors to the top healthcare leaders in the system. My face doesn't really matter. My name, who I am, doesn't really matter. All I need to do, my focus is to garner trust with my customers, serve them as best as they can so that they can serve those hospital leaders. And then at the end of the food chain, the patient gets the best care they possibly can. So It's a faceless mission because it doesn't matter who does it. It just needs to be done. So it's tough for me to kind of buy into that. And so for me right now.
Let's stop right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's unpack that. I'm just going to jump in for a second because what you just said was, so when PJ, I'm just for everybody's knowledge, when he jumped into Brand Built and he joined Brand Built, this was the exact kind of story or mission he was telling us. And the first person was Darren, and he said, now, wait a minute. Yes, technically it's faceless, but is it really? And PJ kind of went, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, your customers still see your face. Your customers still read your content. Your customers still interact with you. If you're a shitty person and they don't like you, guess what? They stop interacting. Therefore, you stop selling. And boom. So that was the transformation. By the way, it's been amazing to watch the transformation from the day you came in to like now. And it hasn't been like incredibly long. It's not years or anything.
Oh, no.
But it's been amazing because you've been like, holy shit, this works. Yeah. And what you just said is exactly. So continue that because what you're going to say now, and I have an inkling of what you're going to say, it works.
It does.
Whether you think it's going to, it actually works, people. It actually works.
It does. I mean, and I think the best advice I've been getting from people is to just go after it. Is to just do it. Like it's funny. I was waking up at 3 a.m. A couple of days ago, and I sat up in bed, and my wife was like, "Hey, are you all right?" And I'm like, "Oh God,
why are you awake?"
I'm having a cringe moment on this post that I just like pressed fire on and just let out to the world. And I'm wondering if it's just not on the mark. My wife was like, dude, go back to bed, man. It's 3 a.m.
Who cares? Yeah.
Yeah. Like it'll resonate or it won't. And guess what? You got another chance tomorrow to put up another post.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
I was like, okay. She was like, not everyone's going to hit the mark. And it's okay because as long as she goes, were you truthful? Were you genuine in the post? I said, yeah, I was. She goes, that's all that matters. Just be genuine.
Done.
Be yourself. And don't stop. That's the best advice I could give somebody. And I'm like a white belt. I'm like first day on the dojo floor in LinkedIn, as far as I'm concerned in terms of my skill. But I'm trying new things, right? Joel Irway's Power Offer, tried one out. It was great. Got a demo.
Joel Irway is awesome. He's an awesome dude. He knows his shit for sure.
He does. So I'm just very blessed right now to be surrounding myself with good people and learning from really top people in the industry, people like yourself that are running a business, that have a lot of insight, that are giving back to the community also by, showcasing myself. Like I wouldn't have expected that, to be honest, because who am I really? But that's part of where my narrow thinking has to break free, because I do have some value to bring to the table and I have something that I can put forward towards people. And so that's going to have to come from me.
You absolutely do. And you are, in my opinion, you are 100% an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship doesn't mean owning a business. It's the mindset. Okay. The mindset of entrepreneurship and how an entrepreneur thinks doesn't mean that you necessarily work for, it doesn't mean you necessarily work for yourself. You could work for somebody else. I know plenty of people who work for somebody else, but their mindset, it's the reason that you've been able to become so successful, because you have to still have that mindset, and whether you work for yourself or anybody else, right? And you've also kind of given yourself the framework of, I'm not just going to create a job for myself. I'm going to create a lifestyle for myself. You've already done that by saying, my wife actually wants me to show up for dinner this week. Like, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, is the people who work for other people, who are working for companies, they can only take away from you what you give, what you allow them to take away, right? And I learned that from somebody whose name is Josh McLean. He used to be in Brand Belt. He's such a great guy. He works for Nike, and so he's power speaking on these huge stages. And he was the first person that I've met in, well, I guess ever, other than yourself, who actually enjoys his corporate job. You want to know why? Because of what you just said. He sets his boundaries, and he's very diligent about it. He sets his boundaries, and he doesn't let them take more than he's willing to give. And I feel like you're doing the same thing, right? Like, you're successful because you're not being taken advantage of.
100%. And that's the one thing I can say with all certainty, is that the two companies that I've worked for in sales, the current one that I'm with and my last company, were some of the most phenomenal people. I still very much keep in touch with my old coworkers. They're really great people. I love them to death, and they'll be brothers and sisters of mine for life, because they treated me well. They really respected me. They valued me, and now at my new company at IDN Directory, it's the same thing. I have people that are extremely supportive, excited to watch me grow, excited to nurture me, and give me positivity every day. And I've had that. A lot of people can't say that. It's funny. I had that at the dojo for years as well. And I have gone 3 for 3 in my life with the last 3 jobs I've had, where I've worked for phenomenal people. They've been extremely nurturing. They've helped me grow. I've had a work-life balance, and that's not something, when you get that once in your life, that's a gift. If you get it twice in your life, that's a double gift. If you get it 3 times in your life, it's like,
you're golden.
Then I can't ask for much more. So I think for me, the work-life balance hasn't always been as much of an issue, but I think for me, it's me being able to set personal boundaries.
Exactly.
Me being able to say, hey, I'm going to cut it off for today, right? It's like, it's 6:30. My wife's cooking dinner. I should be done. Like, I don't need to be doing this. Like, my hours end at 5, and most days I'm right on it. I'm like, yep, 5 o'clock, boop, close the laptop. That's it. It's time. It's family time now. So it's, but it takes discipline to do that, because not everybody can do that.
Exactly. And it takes, and we're almost at time, but I do want to transition a little bit, because I do want to hear, it takes discipline. It's 100% a mindset thing. Running a business, working for somebody else, systems and processes and operations and automation and all the stuff, right? Yeah, automation is supposed to make your life easier. Systems and processes are supposed to make your life easier. But you know what? Someone still has to set them up. Someone still has to put the strategy behind how you're doing this on a daily basis and on a regular basis in the systems and processes. And that's the discipline where I find your entire story so fascinating, because what you've done is you've taken the discipline that you learned in the dojo and you've pulled it through your entire life. Correct. Right? And so entrepreneurs, that's exactly what we all strive for, is the discipline to run a business, knowing I'm probably going to fail. This isn't going to work. Like, whatever, all of the doubt, the self-doubt, all the crap. And even if you do fail, you're not really failing. You learn from every failure. You pick yourself up, you get out of bed the next day, and you move on, just like you did with your LinkedIn post. At the end of the day, none of it really matters. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is your family, right? Like your friends, your family, and the lifestyle you want to build. And I am really curious to hear about this SaaS product that you have. Now, is this something that you developed, or does a company own it and you're running it?
Exactly.
So you developed it for yourself personally in your sales. Okay.
So no, basically I came in, this is kind of a startup. It's called the IDN Directory. I work for a company called Share Moving Media that runs a number of healthcare and supply chain driven publications for either sales reps or people in the provider world. And so this product is basically designed, it was developed by them, And what I'm here to do is basically expose it to the world and build more opportunities for them to get
Gotcha.
more customers to use it. Like I said, what we really do is that we connect people just at a little bit of a different level. So we're focused on connecting people at the IDN level, not so much that hospital level. So it's very unique. And we really have a very specific, ICP that is going to benefit from it. But as we learn how to target those folks a little bit more efficiently, and that's what I'm tasked with doing, I'm learning a ton in the process, like who is our ideal customer profile, right? Not everybody's going to need us. Not everybody's going to need us. But where we deliver great value is those that do need us, we can get them to places that they can't necessarily get to on their own very easily. And we're there to facilitate that. And we do that really well.
So are you allowed to talk about the software a little bit? Can we talk
Sure.
about it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what it does? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is where I shine. I love this stuff. I'm such a nerd about it, right? So
Sure.
is it a CRM software? So
No,
what
not so much.
exactly what makes it work? What makes
So
it tick?
basically, it's like if you're an accounts or a sales team that goes after those targets at the IDN level. So basically, you need to get in touch with the UNC Health, or you're looking for supply chain leaders in Cleveland Clinic or Corewell Health or New York Presbyterian. IDNs, again, there's probably about 200 or 300 of them in the United States. The top 130, 150 are the ones that most people target. The smaller ones are usually not quite as sought after, but still need products. But what this software does is it allows them to go in very quickly, type in the IDN that they're interested in going after, and then boom, it just pops up a list of all the call points and all the important people they're supposed to be reaching out to. So
it's
quickly,
almost like a lead generation machine. It's a prospecting tool.
It's a prospecting tool, correct. It's a prospecting tool, and it's able to help you get information on the who's who of who you need to contact, but it backs it up with news on those IDNs that's valuable to you and that you can use as ways to get in the door. Because one thing I've learned about hospital people is they love to hear about their achievements, and we have the achievements in news. So you can use those news articles as leverage to get to your customer, to get closer to your customer. We have some contact details so you can actually physically reach out to them. We have data so that you can source data as needed, that's helpful to you in terms of your sales process. And then last but not least, we have exclusive content, which is basically like actual interviews with hospital supply chain bigwigs, and they give great insights as to their systems and how to best work with them, which is just golden information. So we provide all of that.
That's very cool. And so then our sales, like the salespeople that are using this tool, are they also like tracking all of their activities inside this platform, or is this just the place that they go to gather all of the information so that they can do their prospecting? Are they
correct
able to keep? Okay.
That's right.
It's basically an informational database for them, like a Zoom info, but specifically for your IDNs. In
a sense, that's correct. It's like you probably
Very
know
cool.
Definitive Healthcare. We're similar to Definitive Healthcare.
Yeah.
Definitive gives you the whole ecosystem, and they do it better than anyone. We just focus on helping you get to the IDN level. So what we say is if you're trying to flip an IDN, if you're trying to get your company to adopt your product system-wide throughout the whole network, we have a tool that can help you get there very quickly.
That's very cool. I would love to hear about, and we'll have to have you back on too, because I know this is a newer role for you. So I can't wait to talk to you in like 6 months and hear how much it's changed, because I know you said it's also a smaller company. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to see how your role and how the product itself has changed. So can we set a date and have you come back on in 6 months? Startup software companies fascinate me. Awesome. Yes. We're going to do that then, because
just throw it on my calendar and I'll definitely make it work.
Absolutely. So this has been super insightful. I'm so glad that you got to tell your story and we got to connect, because I feel like your story is such an inspiration for people who are just trying to like do this every day, right? Like they're just trying to either be an employee, be the best employee they have, build a personal brand and do it better than anybody else. And the discipline story is something that people really need to connect with, because if you don't have some sort of discipline going on in your life, it's probably going to be a lot harder for you to get where you want to go. At least, not probably, I know it will be. It will be 100% harder for you to get where you want to go without having those disciplines in the back of your mind, right?
Absolutely.
Right. You know what?
I'm
Tell
a big
everybody
advocate for martial arts. So go to your net, find a dojo, start training, get that discipline. You can always do it.
Darren keeps telling me, he's like, you should try boxing. And I was like, dude, I'm like For anybody who cares, I'm like 115 pounds, soaking, dripping wet with lead in my pockets. So me with boxing gloves on would actually be pretty comical. I might do it just for PJ and Darren, just to send them ridiculous pictures of like, what are you doing? Go back to your computer. Like, stop it. Because it would be that funny. It would really that funny. But yet I'm raising 3 teenage boys. So that's my dojo right there. They can protect me.
Boy, there you go. There you go.
I would do it for the comical factor though, because it would be pretty amusing. I'm actually super uncoordinated, by the way, which is amazing to me because my mom used to make fun of me because I would be like the dancer because I was doing ballet, right? So I'm in toe shoes, right? And I would be coming onto the stage and I'd be behind stage and I would like trip and fall on my face, like just totally smash right on the ground. And then I would get up and I would go out there and I would dance beautifully and never mess up once. But I can't walk. Like, what is wrong with me?
Ballet is one of the hardest disciplines there is. I mean, ballet is one of the hardest disciplines there is. I had a lot of, actually, I would get students from Juilliard that would come and do karate, and they were doing it.
Absolutely.
They were struggling with their mental toughness. And I said, okay, well, we're not going to get you fighting because you need to be dancing. But we coached a lot of dancers at the dojo, and they were great students. Great students.
It mentally breaks you down. And I wish I had known an instructor. If I had an instructor like you, I probably would have done the same thing because it definitely mentally breaks you down, and you're your own worst critic when you're a dancer for sure.
Oh yeah, it
has nothing to do with everybody else. You're competing against yourself, and
100%.
It's pretty ridiculous. But all right, guys, we are at a time. PJ, tell everybody where they can find you. And what's the best way to contact you if they want to reach out and discuss any of this kind of stuff?
Absolutely.
For sure. On LinkedIn.
So you can find me on LinkedIn under PJ Valentini. I'll also just put in a plug for my email address, pjvalentini@idndirectory.com. That's another way to get a hold of me.
And we're going to drop that. Yeah, we'll drop all that information in the show notes too. So there'll be like a one click and people can just go grab your info for sure.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. This has been really wonderful for me.
Yeah, this has been fantastic. And again, 6 months. Andrea, we're put it on the calendar, 6 months. And we're going to have you back on because SaaS companies fascinate me because I'm a nerd and I really want to know where it's gone in 6 months. And remember, everybody, technology is only good when it works. And we will see you next week. Bye, everybody. Thank you, PJ.
Bye-bye. Take care.